Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
Beget and effect. Cornering Emma at the sanitarium, Britt asked how Rocco was doing, but Emma indicted her of only pretending to watch about Rocco before storming off. Emma also caught up with Felicia, seeking advice about how she could help Gio after his falling out with Dante, since Felicia had managed to get another father/son brace, Mac and Cody, to attune when they weren't speaking. Felicia explained that she'd made Mac and Cody see that they loved each other, and Emma replied that she believed Dante and Gio wanted a relationship, indeed if neither of them was willing to admit it. When Felicia suggested Emma find a common cause that could unite them, Emma smiled, realizing what she could do to bring them together back in action. Back from her extended gym holiday, Tracy learned from Ned and Brooke Lynn that her son had had a heart attack while she was gone. Although hurt that the family had deliberately kept the news from her so she wouldn't rush home, Tracy understood Ned's logic that he didn't want her picking a fight with Olivia while they were both spooked and stressed. Also, she joked with her son that he's not allowed to die before her, and Ned declared that he'd no intentions of leaving his family anytime soon, so he was changing his life. Gio had picked up fresh yield from the request, and Ned grew anxious over the way his grandson, son, and mama floated while he ate an omelet. Brooke Lynn called their tyrannous concern a homage to how much they all loved him, and Tracy steered Ned upstairs to take his diurnal nap. Returning to the kitchen, Tracy thanked Brooke Lynn and Gio for taking care of Ned and remarked that she was happy to see mama and son getting along so well. Emma also arrived and participated with Gio that she felt the stylish way he could make effects better for Rocco was to find a way to make effects right with Dante born to run. Dante planned to take Rocco to the courthouse for his hail so that Lulu could stay before with Charlotte, but the teen didn't want to be around his pater. Until Dante forgave Gio. Rocco got huffy when Dante snapped that he'd have a say-so in effects when he wasn't breaking the law. Defusing the pressure between father and son, Lulu transferred Rocco upstairs to change his shoes, also blasted Dante for being too hard on the teen. Hysterical that Rocco was going to take on further responsibility for the break-in just to malignancy his father, Lulu declared that she'd accompany him to the courthouse rather. Outside, Charlotte told Nathan that the Bobbies were wasting their time by guarding the house, because her father wouldn't show up there. Danny also arrived, since he and Charlotte were planning to support Rocco at his meeting with the judge, but Nathan didn't suppose it was a good idea for Hisco conspirators to be present. Latterly, Charlotte let it slip to Danny that she'd wanted to do commodity to help Rocco before she went down. When Danny questioned where she was going, Charlotte swore him to secretiveness before revealing that she got a communication from Valentine to stay for him, so she might be leaving Port Charles. But, she also commended, she wasn't sure if she actually wanted to leave city or not. In the history, she only had her father to count on, Charlotte explained, but now that she had her mama, Danny, and Rocco, she'd miss them all if she left. After Lulu and Rocco left, Dante commended to Nathan that if effects didn't go their way at the hail, he'd feel like it would be his fault. Explaining how everything that's happened with Gio has brought up the resentment Rocco had from when Dante abandoned the family, Dante conceded that indeed though he allowed he was doing the right thing at the time, he'd no idea how important his absence affected Rocco until his son lately said commodity. And now, Rocco was pushing him down, he lamented. Suggesting his friend go back to basics to fix his relationship with Rocco, Nathan questioned what Dante would have to do to make effects more between them. Sentence served. Ahead of Rocco's hail, Justine called Sunny to her office and expressed how poorly she felt about what happened to Rocco at the detention center, especially since Dalton was nowhere to be set up and no bone could corroborate his claims. But when she insinuated that Sunny had commodity to do with Dalton's exposure, he suggested that the acting DA concentrate on Willow's forthcoming tried murder trial and drop the charges against his grandson. Justine argued that it wasn't that easy, since Rocco was also Mayor Collins's grandson, and if it looked like she was giving him preferential treatment, the press would charge them both of corruption. Eavesdropping them arguing from the hallway, Rick entered Turner's office. Justine hoped he could get Sunny to see that Rocco had broken a law, but Rick volleyed back that without any real substantiation, the execution would be locking up an innocent sprat, and he didn't suppose Turner wanted that character at this stage of her career. Meaning what Rick said, Justine suggested she and the counsel go see the judge. Sonny was staying in Justine's office when Lulu and Rocco arrived, and he reminded his grandson to be polite and regardful with the judge and not try to argue. Returning from the judge's chambers, Rick and Justine streamlined the others that Rocco's plea deal would moreover be 30 days of incarceration or 500 hours of community service, and it was over to the amusement DA to decide. The group moved over to Justine's office, where Rocco bravely conceded that he was wrong to trespass and apologized for how his conduct impacted other people. Impressed by his statement, Justine doomed Rocco to community service. Pressure luck. Sidwell invited Laura to the Metro Court garden, but she was irked that he was parading her around in public when Ezra Boyle was supposed to be their go-between. Sidwell professed that their meeting was a special occasion since he was buying Sonny's peers, and he anticipated Laura to plump the trade at a press conference. Beating, Laura refocused out that she'd opposed Measure C, but Sidwell spun it that she'd opposed using prestigious sphere to seize the peers. This was her supporting free enterprise, he gleefully contended, and she'd take credit for brokering the deal. Also, Kevin showed up and pulled over a president. Claiming they were having a private discussion, Sidwell tried to get him to leave, but Laura's hubby refused to leave her alone with her blackmailer. When Jens tried to laugh off his blameworthiness as having no idea what Kevin was pertaining to, Laura informed him that her hubby knew everything, which Sidwell said was unfortunate. He advised Kevin that there would be ramifications, and not just politically if anyone obtruded with the agreement he'd made with Laura. When Laura refocused out that she'd made the deal with the understanding she wouldn't have to deal directly with him, Sidwell scowled that it was a special occasion and she didn't have any choice. Not accepting that answer, Kevin fitted that his woman could always call Sidwell's Baranka. There were lines Laura would not cross, Kevin noted, and if Sidwell forced her to do so, he'd completely support his woman. If she decided to turn herself in. Appreciating Kevin's candor, Sidwell responded just as honestly that he demanded Sonny and Laura, but not Dr. Collins. Also, with a flourish, Sidwell made moves to leave, telling Laura that he was looking forward to her press conference. Once they were alone, Laura advised her hubby not to cross Sidwell again like that. Fair exchange. Jack informed Jocelyn that while the manhunt for Valentine continued, they demanded to communicate Cassidy's counsel, a woman named Barbara Saunders, in their hunt for the word he'd on Sidwell and the 5 poppies. Still, Jack didn't believe Barbara actually was because she'd entered Steinmauer with a fake ID, and a sophisticated infrared blocking technology in her eyeglasses averted the captivity's facial recognition software from relating her. After Jack ordered Jocelyn to figure out who Barbara Saunders really was, she said she'd get started after she stopped by her mama's house. When Jack participated that he anticipated a full report, Jocelyn snarked that she'd brief him on Carly's safety, but that was all. Jack also called Britt from a blocked number, demanding her presence at the WSB office. Once she arrived, Jack advised her that the WSB was probing Professor Dalton's exploration, and the office was apprehensive he'd been canalizing data to someone at the 5 Poppies resort, where she'd been working in the lab. With Dalton gone, Jack mused, Sidwell and his associates must be leaning on Britt. She tried to play it off that she didn't know Sidwell, but Jack informed her that they were apprehensive she was working with the miscreant. He anticipated her to hand over her data, and if she didn't, he'd tell Sidwell that Britt was working for the WSB the entire time she was on the design. Realizing she had the upper hand because the WSB demanded her, Britt refused to just hand over her data and demanded that Jack get her medical license reinstated in exchange for her cooperation. Ready and staying. Not trusting Valentine to be alone in her house, Carly took a particular day from work, but the fugitive wasn't happy to be stuck hiding out there, down from his son, either, and he criticized Jack. As Valentine helped himself to coffee and cereal, he reminded Carly that the entire reason he'd transferred Charlotte back to live with Lulu was that Brennan had betrayed him. Carly allowed that Charlotte was thriving in Port Charles, but Valentine claimed his son demanded him. Taking his breakfast, Valentine returned to the garret. Latterly, Jocelyn arrived with an angel for her mama's tree that she'd picked up at the Christmas request. Claiming she wanted to get into the vacation spirit, Joss suggested she, Carly, and Donna have a Christmas cookie party that weekend. Figuring that the progeny together was just a reason for Joss to keep eyes on her, since the man who'd tried to kill her was on the loose, Carly declared that if Valentine was headed to Port Charles, he'd want to see Charlotte, not her. Joss had no choice but to agree when Carly suggested she and Donna singe Eiffels and embellish at Jocelyn's place over the weekend. Once Jocelyn left, it was safe for Valentine to come down from the garret. Carly freaked out about Donna's safety when the fugitive asked where her youngish son was, but Valentine placarded that the only person at threat, away from him, was Brennan. Carly wondered what the plan was to get Joss out of the WSB and Jack out of their lives formally and for all. Explaining how Jack wanted the illegal technology that Sidwell was developing grounded on Faison's work, Valentine participated that they demanded to make sure Brennan was held responsible once the design was exposed. Also, Jack would be transferred to captivity for disloyalty. Carly wasn't sure how they could get Jack to take the fall for commodity he wasn't a part of, but Valentine was positive Brennan would find himself in the middle since he wanted the technology so poorly. And when he does, I'll be ready, Valentine asserted with a nod of his head. Were you satisfied with Rocco's judgment? Do you suppose Sidwell is going to target Kevin next? How is Carly going to juggle hiding Valentine in her house while keeping up appearances with Jack? Partake your prognostications about GH in the commentary below. In the intricate ecosystem of Port Charles, no action exists in isolation. A teenage rebellion ripples into the district attorney's office, a secret whispered in a hospital corridor fuels a familial reconciliation, and a spa vacation's end heralds a strategic shift in a decades-old family dynamic. The city operates on a relentless principle of cause and effect, where personal motives collide with public duty, and the path to healing often requires navigating a minefield of past resentments. As characters grapple with the consequences of recent chaos, a botched baptism, a fugitive on the run, a mayoral extortion, their efforts to mend, manipulate, and survive reveal the delicate, often fragile, webs that connect them all. Cause and effect, the ripple of a rebellion. The epicenter of this week's tremors remained the fallout from Rocco Falconeri's ill-fated break-in. His act of misguided solidarity with Gio had not merely been a legal transgression, it was a seismic event in the emotional landscape of his family, exposing fault lines and creating unexpected connections. The tension was palpable at the hospital, where Britt Westbourne, ever the pragmatist with a shrouded heart, attempted to pierce the bubble of adolescent angst. Cornering Emma Drake, she inquired after Rocco, only to be met with a scalding rebuke. Emma, her loyalty to the wounded Gio transforming into a generalized fury, accused Britt of feigning concern. "You only pretend to care about Rocco," she spat before storming off. The accusation, while harsh, highlighted the pervasive distrust sown by recent events. In Emma's eyes, the adults, particularly those tangentially connected to the Cassadine chaos or the WSB's shadow games, were all suspect, their compassion just another form of currency. Seeking solace and wisdom rather than wrath, Emma turned to a Port Charles cornerstone, Felicia Scorpio. In a poignant moment that served as a masterclass in the show's use of legacy, Emma sought Felicia's counsel not just as a friend, but as a veteran of mending fractured male bonds. She referenced Felicia's past success in reconciling Mac and Cody, a father and son separated by years and silence. "How did you do it?" Emma pleaded, her focus on Gio and Dante's stalemate. Felicia's answer was deceptively simple, born of a lifetime navigating complex hearts. "I made them see that they loved each other." She didn't broker a treaty, she held up a mirror to their shared, unspoken devotion. Emma's response was insightful, cutting to the core of the conflict. "I believe Dante and Gio want a relationship, even if neither of them is willing to admit it." She identified the pride and pain blocking the path. Felicia, the seasoned tactician of the heart, offered the crucial strategy: find a common cause that could unite them. A smile dawned on Emma's face, a spark of an idea. That common cause, she realized, was Rocco. By helping Gio find a way to make things right for the boy whose life he'd upended, she could create a bridge back to Dante. It was a plan that transformed a problem into a potential solution, a beautiful example of turning destructive cause into reparative effect. back in action, the matriarch returns. Meanwhile, at the Quartermain mansion, another force of nature re-entered the fray. Tracy Quartermain, refreshed from an extended spa vacation and blissfully unaware, returned to a home tense with unspoken crisis. The revelation from Ned and Brooke Lynn, that Ned had suffered a heart attack in her absence, landed not with a scream, but with a devastating, quiet hurt. The family's decision to shield her, spearheaded by Ned's desire to prevent a scared and stressed clash with Olivia, was a well-intentioned betrayal. Tracy's understanding was immediate, a mark of her deep, if often acerbic, love. Her trademark humor, laced with mortal truth, surfaced as she leveled a gaze at her son. "You're not allowed to die before me." This near brush with mortality had catalyzed a change in Ned. His declaration of intent to alter his lifestyle was met with an overbearing, if loving, vigil. The sight of Gio with fresh market produce, Brooke Lynn hovering, and Tracy orchestrating a mandatory nap created a comic yet deeply affectionate tableau. "This is a tribute to how much we all love you," Brooke Lynn explained, defusing Ned's anxiety with plain truth. In this chaos, Tracy observed a quieter miracle, the burgeoning, respectful bond between Brooke Lynn and Gio. "I'm happy to see mother and son getting along so well," she remarked, her voice uncharacteristically soft, acknowledging the healing of another familial rift born of complicated history. It was into this scene of Quartermain convalescence that Emma arrived, her newfound purpose clear. She connected the threads for Gio directly. The best way to help Rocco was to reconcile with Dante. Her advice was the practical application of Felicia's philosophy, placing the burden of action, and the key to redemption, squarely in Joe's hands. The cause, the break-in, demanded an effect, personal reconciliation, to truly begin healing its youngest victim. Born to run, fathers, sons, and the weight of absence. Across town, the father at the center of this storm, Dante Falconeri, was floundering. His plan to take Rocco to the courthouse hearing disintegrated when his son weaponized his own guilt. Rocco's refusal to go anywhere with Dante until Gio was forgiven was a masterstroke of teenage defiance, hitting Dante where he was most vulnerable, his perceived failure as a father. Dante's sharp retort, "You'll have a say when you're not breaking the law," only widened the gulf. It was Lulu, ever the mediator between her son's heart and her ex-husband's frustration, who intervened. Fearing Rocco would martyr himself in court to spite Dante, she took over escort duty. In the strained quiet after their departure, Dante confided in his brother, Nathan. His anguish was raw and introspective. "If things don't go their way at the hearing, I'll feel like it's my fault." He articulated the painful truth Emma had sensed. The Gio situation had become a lightning rod for Rocco's deeper, older resentment over Dante's past abandonment. "I thought I was doing the right thing at the time," Dante lamented, "but I had no idea how much my absence affected him until he recently said something." This was the true, lingering cause. The break-in was merely its violent effect. Nathan, offering the simple wisdom of a man who found family late, advised a return to basics. "What would you have to do to make things better between you?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, pointing toward a need for humility and direct amends that Dante wasn't yet ready to make. Simultaneously, another child grappled with a paternal pull. Charlotte Cassadine, under Nathan's protective watch, revealed a staggering secret to Danny Morgan. She'd received a message from her fugitive father, Valentine, instructing her to wait for him. "I might be leaving Port Charles," she confessed, swearing Danny to secrecy. But her conflict was palpable. The girl who once had only her father to count on now had a mosaic of connections: her mother, Lulu, back in her life, Danny, a loyal friend, Rocco, a fellow traveler in chaos. "I'd miss them all if I left," she admitted, her desire for her father warring with her newfound, fragile sense of belonging. Her potential departure was another looming effect, its cause rooted in Valentine's dangerous love and the catastrophic baptism that set him on the run. Sentence served, justice, mercy, and political calculus. The courtroom became the stage where these personal dramas met the cold machinery of the state. In the district attorney's office, the cause and effect chain extended into the political realm. Acting DA Justine Turner, feeling the heat from Rocco's rough treatment in juvie and Dalton's convenient disappearance, summoned Sonny Corinthos. Her insinuation that Sunny was behind Dalton's vanishing act was met with steely deflection. Sunny, the master of leveraging pressure, redirected her focus to Willow's impending trial and bluntly demanded the charges against his grandson be dropped. Their tense stalemate was interrupted by Rick Lansing, a wild card entering the game. Justine hoped for an ally in applying the law. Rick, ever the shrewd defender, appealed to her self-interest. Without evidence, prosecuting Rocco meant locking up an innocent kid. "I don't think you want that reputation." His words were an effective reminder. The effect of a wrongful prosecution could derail her career before it truly began. In the judge's chambers, a deal was struck: 30 days incarceration or 500 hours of community service, with Turner holding the choice. Back in her office, faced with a contrite Rocco who bravely owned his mistake, "I was wrong to trespass. I'm sorry for how my actions impacted other people," Justine made her decision. She chose community service. It was a moment of measured mercy, an effect born from multiple causes: Rick's warning, Sunny's pressure, Lulu's maternal presence, and Rocco's genuine remorse. Justice was served, but it was justice tempered by the very human connections that define Port Charles. Pressure luck, a mayor in a gilded cage. While one crisis found a resolution, another tightened its grip. Mayor Laura Collins, operating under the duress of Sidwell's blackmail, found her cage made more public. Summoned to the Metro Court Garden, a deliberate breach of their clandestine protocol, she was ordered to publicly endorse Sidwell's purchase of Sunny's peers. Sidwell, dripping with faux benevolence, spun it as a political victory for her, supporting free enterprise after opposing eminent domain. Laura was to be the smiling broker of her own subjugation. The arrival of her husband, Kevin Collins, shifted the dynamic. Sidwell's attempt to dismiss him failed spectacularly when Laura stated, "My husband knows everything." Kevin's defiance was a scientist's clarity facing a madman's scheme. He called Sidwell's bluff, asserting Laura had lines she would not cross and that he would support her if she chose to turn herself in. It was a stunning declaration of spousal solidarity that prioritized integrity over survival. Sidwell's response was a chilling delineation of his calculus. "I need Sunny and Laura, but not Dr. Collins." The threat to Kevin was implicit, a warning that collateral damage was not only possible but planned. As Sidwell exited, leaving Laura to admonish Kevin for his bravery, the stakes were horrifically clarified. The cause, Laura's framed crime, now threatened an even more unbearable effect: harm to the love of her life. Sidwell was no longer just manipulating the mayor, he was testing the tensile strength of her marriage. Fair exchange, shadows and barters. In the shadow world of the WSB, transactions of a different kind were underway. Deputy Director Jack Brennan, a man who viewed human beings as assets or obstacles, deployed his agents with cold precision. To Jocelyn Jacks, he assigned the puzzle of Barbara Saunders, Ballantyne's mystery lawyer, whose high-tech evasion techniques marked her as a serious player. Jocelyn's snippy compliance, "I'll brief you on Carly's safety, but that's all," was a tiny rebellion, a daughter's loyalty acting as a buffer against his machinations. Jack's confrontation with Dr. Britt Westbourne was a stark negotiation in power. Cornering her in his office, he laid his cards on the table. The WSB knew about her work at the Five Poppies Resort, her connection to Dalton's research, and her current pressure from Sidwell. His threat was typically Brennan-esque: cooperate or be exposed as a WSB plant to Sidwell, a death sentence. But Britt, having survived Port Charles intrigues and Cassadine machinations, was no mere pawn. She recognized her value. Refusing to simply hand over her data, she drove a hard bargain: her medical license reinstated in exchange for cooperation. It was a brilliant move, trading shadow world intelligence for a return to the sunlit world of healing she craved. The cause, her coerced involvement, yielded an effect, a demand for restoration, that Jack, needing her expertise, could not easily refuse. Ready and waiting, an unlikely alliance in the attic. The most volatile cause and effect chain was quietly humming within the walls of Carly Corinthos's home. Harboring a fugitive Valentine Cassadine in her attic was a scenario only Port Charles could produce. Their dynamic was a tense, darkly comic dance of mutual need and deep-seated loathing. Valentine, chafing at his confinement, blamed Jack for separating him from Charlotte. Carly, taking a personal day to play warden, was preoccupied with the safety of her youngest, Donna, her maternal anxiety on high alert. Their conversation over coffee and cereal was a masterpiece of subtext. Valentine's insistence that Charlotte needed him was undercut by Carly's observation that his daughter was, in fact, thriving without his destabilizing presence. When Jocelyn arrived with Christmas decorations, the domestic farce deepened. Carly saw through her daughter's cookie-baking ruse, knowing it was a pretext for Jocelyn and the WSB to keep surveillance on her. She deftly redirected the festivities to Jocelyn's own home, protecting her dangerous secret. Alone again with Valentine, the plot crystallized. Their goal was not just survival, but the strategic destruction of Jack Brennan. Valentine outlined the endgame: expose Sidwell's illegal tech project, ensure Brennan is implicated in the pursuit of it, and let the system take down the man who wrecked both their lives. And when he does, Valentine asserted with cold certainty, "I'll be ready." Carly, though skeptical, was all in. The cause, Brennan's betrayal and threats, had created the most unlikely of effects: a Corinthos and a Cassadine in a clandestine alliance, playing a long and dangerous game from a suburban attic, waiting for their moment to strike. The web holds predictions in the Port Charles vortex. As the dust settles on Rocco's sentencing and the chess pieces advance in larger games, the questions multiply. Satisfaction with Rocco's sentence? It felt right. It balanced accountability with compassion, acknowledging his crime without crushing his future. It was a just effect for his foolish cause. Sidwell's next target? Kevin is absolutely in the crosshairs. Sidwell's cold dismissal of him was a declaration. Kevin's brave stand made him a liability. The psychological warfare against Laura will escalate, with Kevin's safety or reputation becoming the next lever Sidwell pulls. Carly's juggling act? It's a house of cards. Between Jocelyn's protective suspicion, Jack's omnipresent surveillance, and Donna's innocent presence, Carly's nerves will fray. The Christmas cookie cover is thin. Her greatest challenge will be maintaining normalcy while the tension in her attic reaches a boiling point. A surprise visit from Drew or Michael could blow the whole operation sky high. In Port Charles, the baptismal fire has cooled to embers, but those embers are lighting new fuses. Every conciliation, like Emma's plan or Tracy's return, is a bulwark against the coming storms. Every threat, from Sidwell's political theater to Brennan's cold bargains, tightens the tension. The characters are all living in the effect of past causes, while simultaneously becoming the cause of future, unimaginable effects. The web holds, for now, but it is vibrating with the footsteps of those running towards love, towards vengeance, and towards a destiny forever intertwined.